One time, I found a phone on the side of the road. I was driving home later at night, probably like 10 p.m. Things were quiet, and as I came to a stop at a red light, I casually looked around. The intersection that I was at was busy during the day, but at night, not so much. I was next to a divider that was to my left, and I noticed something on the ground. It appeared to be a phone. I opened up my door and looked closer, realizing that it was in fact a cell phone, so I picked it up. It had been raining outside, so the phone was pretty wet, and I figured it was probably broken. But after looking closer, I saw that it was an iPhone, and I hit the power button and it actually turned on. After that, the light turned green, so I had to finish driving home. But once I was back, I took the phone out and looked at it. Nothing appeared to be wrong with it, and I wanted to return it to the rightful owner. The phone was password protected though, so I had no clue who it belonged to. I tried 1234 as the passcode and some other obvious ones, but none of them worked. After that, I tried using voice commands. I asked Siri who the owner of the phone was, and she said the phone belonged to Brian. Now I had a name, but unfortunately, it was a pretty common name. I asked Siri Brian's contact information, but I was told that the phone had to be unlocked for that. That was the same for everything else. I tried a lot of other commands, but didn't get any results, so I only had the one name to go off of. After that, I decided to make a post on Craigslist that I found somebody's cell phone. I described where I had found it and included a picture of it, and asked for the owner to get in touch with me. Within a day, I got a reply. The first reply, though, was somebody claiming that the phone was theirs. I asked them what their name was. If they answered with anything other than Brian, I knew it wasn't theirs. The first person didn't want to give me their name and asked me why I wanted to know. I said because I know the name of the person who the phone belongs to, and I want to make sure that it's you. They responded saying their name was Joe, and I knew that they weren't the owner. Sometime later, though, I got another reply with somebody saying that it was their phone. When I asked them their name, they said Brian. I finally had found the owner. I was really happy, and I couldn't believe that it actually worked. I asked Brian where he wanted to meet to pick up his phone. Brian told me that he didn't want to cause me any trouble, and he could just stop by my house. When he said that, I thought maybe I shouldn't give him my address. But I told myself, I'm not selling anything on Craigslist, I'm just returning the phone to the owner. So I convinced myself that it was fine, and I gave Brian my home address. He told me that he would stop by at 8 p.m. to pick up the phone. I agreed, and that night at around 8 p.m., there was a knock on my front door. I went over and answered it, and Brian was there, or at least I assumed that's who he was. He had sort of short, reddish hair and was about average height. I said hi to him and then handed him the phone. He took it and then asked me where I found it. I told him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's crazy." Then he just kind of stood there for a few seconds. I was about to say, "Well, have a good night now," and then close the door. But then randomly, he asked me if he could come inside for a minute. I didn't want him to. I knew nothing about this guy, and I certainly knew better than to let him into my house. Plus, I was the only one home at the time. So I told him that I was about to go to bed, and then I started to shut the door. He kept standing there, but said okay. I then closed the door and locked it. Then I turned out the lights right inside. It didn't seem like Brian was walking away though, so I went over to the living room window to look. When I did, I saw Brian still standing there on the front step. It was really weird. Then, probably 30 seconds later, he slowly walked back to his car that was parked on the side of the street. He got inside, and I was about to walk away, but I wanted to see him leave. He sat inside of his car, but did not immediately drive away. I kept watching, and I wasn't going to leave until he did. For like 5 minutes, he was just sitting inside of his car. Then he got out of it again. He started walking back up to my front step, and I had a bad feeling when I saw this. I didn't know what he could possibly want. I was expecting him to maybe knock on the door or something, but he didn't. Instead, he stood on the front step and looked around for a few seconds. Then he started to walk away to the side of the house. When he was out of sight, I finally moved and went to another window. I went to my bedroom, and when I got to the window, just barely saw him go out of sight and behind my house. Now he was in the backyard, and I didn't like this at all. I moved to another back window and then turned on a back light to outside. When it went on, I saw Brian continue to walk through my backyard, but now to the other side of my house. Then he casually walked around the back to the front yard. Once he was there, he returned to his car. Then he started the engine and drove away. I was really weirded out by this. He had made a complete lap around my house. After he drove away, he didn't come back that night, at least not that I'm aware of. I still wonder what he was doing though. My best guess is maybe he was going to try to break in, and when I turned the light on, it possibly scared him off. I really don't know. Either way, it was very weird. A few years ago, I lost my phone. I just remember that one day I came home from work and realized that I didn't have my phone on me. I tried to remember where I could have possibly left it, but I honestly had no clue. I worked a pretty normal office job in the city at that time. Also, I would walk several blocks to get to my car and then would drive home. It didn't seem that likely to me that I would drop my phone, but I honestly had no clue. So the next day when I went to work, I looked around my cubicle hoping that I had left it there. I thought that it had to be there because I hadn't remembered dropping it or any situations where I could have. I guess it was possible though. After searching my desk and around it, my phone was nowhere to be seen. I felt completely dejected and realized that probably meant that my phone was a goner. If I lost it on the city streets or something, it certainly would not still be there. I logged onto my computer to work after that and figured that I would have to buy another phone later. But when I was checking my email, I saw one with the subject, cell phone. My eyes lit up when I saw this. Could somebody have found my phone? I clicked on the email and read it. It was short and to the point. Whoever sent it said that they had found my phone and got my contact information from it. They wanted to give me my phone back as soon as possible, but asked me if I could pay a finder's fee of $400. My happiness went away after reading the last sentence. A finder's fee of $400? I really hoped that it was a joke. I responded to the email saying that I would meet them as soon as possible when they were available to get my phone back. I added that I hoped they were joking about the $400. The sender of the email did not give me a name, and it was from a Gmail account with just random letters and numbers. They responded to me within the hour and told me that they were not joking and wanted $400 for the phone. My phone was the newest version of the iPhone, which did sell for a lot more than $400, but I would still rather buy a new phone for more money than give whoever this was the satisfaction. It made me really angry that they thought they could do that to me. I asked to meet with the person and didn't say if I would pay them or not. The person said that they would come by my house that night and ask me for my address. I responded saying that I would rather meet in public, but they didn't respond to me after that. All of our communication took place within this one workday for me. At the end of the workday, I left and drove back home. But on the way, I stopped at the store and got a cheap phone to use in the meantime. I was trying to make up my mind of what I would do. Either I would have to buy a new phone or get this person to be reasonable with me. I thought about offering them $100 or trying to negotiate, but that still made me mad. I know I shouldn't have to pay them any money at all. I also considered getting the police involved, but I didn't know if anything could be done. So I got home that night at like 6 p.m. or so. I lived by myself in a pretty standard one-bedroom apartment. About an hour after returning home, there was a knock on my door. I walked over and looked through the peephole to see who was there. When I did, I saw a man standing outside of the door. He was wearing a black jacket, a winter hat, and sunglasses. He was also wearing a scarf that was covering most of his mouth. It was wintertime though, so nothing about it was that strange. I realized this might be the guy who had my phone. He likely got my address from my phone, as he had got my contact information. I opened up the door and said hi to him. I really couldn't tell much of what he looked like because of what he was wearing, but he was a little bit shorter than me. He said that he had my phone and wanted just $400 for it and would give it back to me. Then he reached into his pocket and held my phone up for just a second. I tried to reason with the guy. I asked him why he thought I should give him that much money. He said because he wanted it. I told him that that was unreasonable and it was my phone, so I shouldn't have to pay him. The guy cursed at me and then out of nowhere started walking forward and into my apartment. I didn't have any time to stop him, and I backed up, but couldn't even try to close the door on him. He was already mostly inside. At that point, I just turned and ran for the nearest room, which happened to be my bathroom. I was just a few feet ahead of the guy, but when I started running, gained some distance on him. I got into the bathroom and then slammed the door shut and locked it. The guy tried entering seconds later, and after that I heard him walk away. He was still inside my apartment though. Luckily, I had my crappy phone that I just bought at Walmart. I dialed 911 as I heard the guy rummaging through my apartment. I told the police what was going on, and I was told that some officers were on the way. Still, I was pretty scared being alone in my place with this creep. I heard him go into my bedroom, as well as the living room and kitchen. I hoped that he wouldn't try to enter the bathroom again, and luckily, he didn't. He remained inside of my apartment for maybe 5 minutes, and then I heard him leave. I stayed in the bathroom until the police got there, though. They arrived about 5 minutes after the man left. When I went back out, I saw that my apartment was pretty messed up. The guy was probably looking around for anything valuable that I had, and he did steal a few things. Luckily, my wallet was still on me. I told the police all of the information that I could, and they said they would look into it. Unfortunately, I never got my phone back. I still don't know who stole it. I've considered that it was possibly somebody who works in my building that did it. My office building is very large, and multiple companies are in there. Lots of people go through the building, so that might be what happened, but I really don't know that for sure.